Good morning, Mr. Battle. How are you?
I am doing fine, Emily. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to interviewing you and hearing more about your role.
Excellent, excellent. Well, looking forward to talking with you.
Awesome. Well, first off, can you describe how you approach your role as the first ever UNC-Chapel Hill Vice Chancellor for Institutional Integrity and Risk Management?
Well, it's interesting. Being the first in anything is kind of a daunting task, but it's pretty exciting as well because, you have a blank slate. So, for better or for worse, nobody's been there before you, and you have a chance to do something nobody has done.
Mm.
I look at the role of the division, institutional integrity and risk management, as being the protector of UNC's, people, property, and reputation.
Mm.
And maybe the best way to answer that question is to talk a little bit about the different parts that compose the division. So there are really three component parts. You have campus safety and risk management, which includes environmental health and safety, campus police, emergency management, protection of minors. You also have compliance and integrity, which includes ethics and policy, and that's the group you're interning with this year, and conflict of interest, the chief compliance officer's office, export controls, and privacy. So, and then the third area is enterprise risk management, which is all about helping the university identify risks and figure out how to manage those risks effectively as part of its business. So I look at that. I look at the role of the department, like I said, as the protector of the university's people, property, and reputation. And I look at my role. I look at my job as a um, um, pretty groundbreaking role, not because of me, but just because the university is choosing to go in this area, and I've been fortunate enough to be tapped as the first to lead this enterprise.
For sure. Around a year ago, I remember you describing your role as in the well. You described your role as doing the right thing the right way all the time. So
That's right.
can you explain kind of what you meant by that and how that factors into how you approach your job?
Well, I just think it's something actually I learned from. Believe it or not, I played basketball in high school, so it's something I learned from my coach. He always used to say, "Do the right thing the right way all the time," and I think that's a good mantra to kind of live your life by, right? But it's also, I think, good for what we're trying to do here in institutional integrity and risk management, and that is to create and maintain that culture where, whether it's in our business, whether it's in our teaching, whether it's in, you know, uh, carrying out any of the operations of the university, that we seek foremost to do the right thing, and we seek to do it the right way, and we do that all the time.
Mhm.
I've also practiced law for for a little bit over 20 years now, and one of the advantages of that as well is not just the ethical and moral advantages, which are significant, but also just the operation, because it ends up in the long run costing you more when you try to take shortcuts, when you don't do things the right way, when you don't do the right thing. And unfortunately, I've been on the other side of helping clients and organizations that I've been a part of, clean up those messes. And I can tell you, it's always easier long term and from every perspective to do things the right way, to do the right thing the right way all the time.
Awesome. So how has COVID-19 affected your role and how has COVID-19 affected risk management at UNC?
So I will say, as far as my role personally, COVID-19 has been the norm for me, right? So I got here January 6th of last year, and I had about, maybe a month and a half, 2 months rather, before we were really kind of in the throes of COVID-19. I think that as far as risk management, as far as all of the entities in the division, we've been on the front lines, whether it's environmental health and safety, helping to make sure that our buildings are safe, and that, the PPE that for our healthcare workers and others is up to code, whether it's our emergency management group, making sure that all the functions are coordinated, to our compliance and compliance pieces that are helping our researchers and make sure that they stay within the bounds of federal law and that they understand what those are. We've been kind of on the front lines with our colleagues and teammates in other parts of the university during this period. And so it's been very educational for me. And I will say, I think I've learned more about the university in this compressed time period. One of the silver linings, I guess, for me, in terms of how it operates and the business of it. I've probably learned more in the year than I probably could have learned over 5 years of normal operations. So it's been hectic, it's been trying, it's been difficult, but it's also been heartening to see the university pull together and to weather a crisis. As you know, from having been here, and I'm a Carolina alum as well, the university has weathered a number of crises over its 200 plus year history. And so it's kind of, we're kind of in a historical place here, right? So, 100 years from now, people will look back at this kind of like we look back at the university, how it operated during the Civil War, World War II, First World War, those eras.
Yeah, it kind of seems like your role came just in time, and it definitely giving you a run for your money.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, what risk at UNC most concerns you right now that is not related to COVID-19?
I think just the fact, and it's not anything, I guess, I don't know that I would characterize as concerning, so to speak, but we are on the cutting edge of so much. And it's just a matter of trying to keep up and make sure that, the obstacles or the challenges that might be out there are adequately accounted for. We are doing so much, cutting edge work in so many areas. Plus, the history of this university and what we mean to the state, what we mean to the country, and then establishing our global footprint. I think it's just the fact that we are doing so much. We want to make sure that as far as possible, we can, anticipate challenges, stay ahead of those and deal with those. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing is just making sure that we're kind of, we're ahead of the game and that we're not going to get caught off guard with an obstacle that we didn't anticipate.
Well, I think COVID-19 is definitely an obstacle we didn't anticipate, but
Right.
we're handling it as well as we can. So, definitely proving yourself in your new role very well. Are there
Well, thank
any
you. I appreciate that.
are there any campus policies you think students should be aware of regarding institutional integrity and risk management?
Mm. Well, I just think, I mean, it's hard to single out any particular ones. I think, just from my perspective as a student, I was not as aware kind of the campus policies and resources available. I think the university does a better job of getting that information out now, certainly than it did, 25 or 30 years ago when I was here initially as a student and then through law school. I think certainly, being aware of the academic policies, certainly being aware of policies that protect your rights as a student that are in place to, protect students in terms of your safety, in terms of your academic viability. I think those are certainly, if I were to transport myself back in time and become a student again, those would be the ones that I would be most cognizant of.
So going off of that question, if there's any one policy you can change at UNC, which one would you change and why?
So that's a tough question. I don't have a clear answer for that. I think, and here's why. And so I'm not just copping out because I think that, and as somebody who's worked with institutional policy, since the beginning of my career, over 20 years, all of these are important. All of the policies are important. They were there for a reason, for a purpose. I think if I could do one thing about our policy apparatus to help us along, I would, and this seems kind of self-serving too, I would give us more resources to educate faculty, staff, students, our community about our policies and how they fit in, how they work.
That's a great.
I certainly would do that because I think all of them are important. And it's easy to look at some from a perspective like, oh gosh, what does that mean or what have you? But the danger in that is that you lose, without having the context of why that came about or why that was there, you may end up causing yourself more problems on the back end. So I know it sounds like a cop out, but I think that all of our policies are important. It is critically important, and this is a role that I know that you and your colleagues are certainly helping us with, to make sure that we constantly review the policies and make sure that they're in line with how we operate today and what we need today. It's not enough. I guess if I were to go back to the original question of a policy I would change and why, it's not a particular policy, but I would change any policies that don't reflect the regulatory landscape today or how we operate today, and that serve as impediments as opposed to the guidepost that policy is supposed to be.
That's a great point about making students and faculty more aware of the policies that are implemented in the end for them. So I think it's a great point that you made. Students and faculty, like how can we make them more aware of these policies that are there to like protect them and benefit them? So that's a great point. Well,
Yeah.
that was my last question for you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for answering my questions, and it was great to get to know you and more about your role. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do in the future at UNC.
Well, thank you so much, Emily. I appreciate the thoughtful questions, and even beyond this, you've given me a lot to think about. So, and thank you for the work that you're doing with ethics and policy. Great team over there, and glad that you're a part of that. And look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank
And
you.
good luck with rowing. You're on the rowing team, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, good luck.
Thank you.